Alright guys, it's crazy here. I just wanted to go over our last Epoch stuff. We've done a whole bunch of hardcore. I made a Falconer, Necromancer, and I wanted to do a solo account found with the Primalist. This is what I was first going to do before the game was released. We made like a little video saying what classes we might play. Ended up trying out the Falconer and whatnot since it was new. But because this is what I was wanting to get done, we ended up going with this, the Shaman. So hardcore solo account found, and I'll give you the reasons why I think this is good. Reasons why it's probably one of my favorite to start with, especially if you're doing solo account found where you can't trade with people. Let's get into that real quick. So, in the guide here, just to kind of let people know what we're going through, we're going to go over some of the legendary potentials that you want, how you're going to build for tankiness, and I'm going to start off with what you're going to do for low level up into high level. And then I'll go over the gear as well. So for the most part, you're pretty much building a Thorn Totem build, which I think there's a lot of guides out there for them already. So I'm going to go over kind of why I do Thorn Explosion, especially for leveling. And then later, if you want, you can try to shift over to doing more of extreme damage Thorns only with the totems. But let's go over what we're doing here. So in the passive tree here, we did pick Shaman as our mastery. And the reason why is because the -5 totem mana cost and the elemental resistance when you control a totem and everything. All of this really helps out when you're first leveling. So for your first character going through solo account found, you're going to get massive bonuses to being able, like having 50% elemental resist makes it so that all the rest of the gear, you can kind of just go for your poison, your necrotic, and your void while you're leveling. And then once you actually get high enough level, if you see how this works, the stats are just crazy. So I'm pretty much max stats on everything, and the more I cast my abilities, the more stats we get, including our armor. This goes all the way to max level, so you see the max armor quickly going up. That's one of the reasons why we're doing it. So here's the Primalist. As your Primalist, you're going to mainly spec into HP and whatnot because you're doing hardcore. But when you're first going through, the natural attunement's very nice. Getting the lightning and the cold resistance means that you can spec for other things on your gear. You don't have to worry about anything. So definitely go for natural attunement to start with. And then as you get higher level, start transitioning points over into things like Gift of the Wilderness, since the 8 points in attunement isn't going to help you as much as some of the stats on our gear we're going to get. It's not really an attunement stacking build as much as... Attunement does help us, but it's not as much as attunement stacking build as you would with the Primalist when you're doing strength stacking or whatnot. So level up with natural attunement to begin with, then always get Hunter's Restoration. That 10% increase hit points is really big. It's going to help a lot in hardcore. If you want, go into Harmony of Blades while you're leveling. This is going to let you equip an offhand of an axe or a sword. It gives you pretty big damage, especially if you get a nice axe that helps with minion damage. And also, if you see over here, while you have an axe in hand, it's going to give you 10 spell damage, or it's going to give you 15 instead of just 5. So that's very good. Over here, you get Wisdom of the Wild. It's going to make your totems do more damage. And then Berserker is kind of the big thing you need on the tree here. You only need 20 points into Primalist, so if you just want to go 20 points to begin with, then immediately start speccing into something different, go ahead. But towards the end of the game, you're going to want to get Berserker, and we'll go over why here pretty shortly. The next thing is the Shaman tree. I actually end up going into the Shaman tree later, and I end up using the Beastmaster and the Druid tree first. So for this kind of build, especially for solo account found, while you're going through, you're going to immediately, as soon as you get the ability to become a Shaman, you're going to pick Shaman. You're going to get that -5 totem mana cost. And then you're going to go into Druid, and you're going to try to get your Spriggan form, and your summon Spriggan right away. After you get Spriggan form and summon Spriggan, go ahead and go over to the Beast Tree and get yourself the Boar Heart. And then you can go over to Shaman and start getting damage for your totems. Around this time in the campaign is when you're going to actually start needing to get attunement and whatnot and penetration, so go ahead and do that. The reason why we're speccing into Druid first is because Spriggan form allows us to cast our totems at a much more powerful rate, and it allows us to cast our heal and everything all in the same form. Along with that, you're going to get endurance in this tree right off the bat. Very powerful for hardcore. The stats are just great. I mean, you're going to get attunement and strength. Both are good for your build. Thicket of Thorns is very powerful because you're already maximizing your Thorn Shield. So when you cast it on yourself, it's more powerful than most builds. And then right here, you're in Spriggan form all the time, so you're just putting the 3 points so that you're able to move. It gives you the 10% movement speed. It's pretty big. Reason why I like to go into Beastmaster next is because I really like the damage taken is reduced by close enemies. Then I like to get Boar's Heart so that every time I take a melee attack, we get that damage reduction. A little bit more hit points for me and the companion. And then extra damage reduction. You can go into this last since activating Boar's Heart isn't guaranteed all the time on every boss. Especially since you're not going to be a Beastmaster, you're not going to really be doing melee auto attacks. So, probably go into Druid first, hit up your Shaman tree pretty deep, and around the time you're hitting the first parts of Rune of Awe, you can finish out your Elemental Resist and your Physical Resist right here, or you can go back over and finish out the Beastmaster stuff. Thing is, you don't really need any of the skills the Beastmaster's using, so it's not imperative. Anyway, in the Shaman tree here, thing we haven't gone over yet, you're going to get your attunement. And then while you're leveling, I would just go ahead and get this attunement and then the HP first. Later on, I wanted to get the cast speed here. And then the extra armor. And we will be using our Storm Totem. So because of that, Stormbringer, Avatar of Thunder, Rune of Awe for all of our totems. And this is some pretty big damage for them. This is big damage for all of our totems. One nice thing is spec into Ancestral Speed just enough to where you're getting that haste chance almost on every proc whenever you're summoning out your totems. And you're going to get different idols that'll actually allow you to help get to that 100% haste chance proc on your totems and summons, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Reason why we go over into Totemic Fury is because cast speed, this helps cast speed for us, and it's going to make us be able to just cast a little bit more faster. It's a lot more powerful because we're blowing our totems up. Okay, so that's the passive tree. Alright, so skills. What you're doing skills on this is we got our Thorn Totem here, the Terra's Blessing, Spriggan form, Spriggan, and then Summon Thorn Totem, or Summon Storm Totem. So if you look here on the passive tree, like I said, you want to activate Shaman, that way you get your -5 totem cost here, and then immediately go into Druid, because the build really starts to take off and feel really good once you start to get Spriggan form. So get Spriggan form and then summon Spriggan. As soon as you get these abilities, you're going to get that 10% movement speed. Everything's going to start to feel pretty well. And then after that, you can either go for tankiness, going into the Beastmaster tree, or start off your Shaman adventure and start going clear down the Shaman tree and just get as much damage for your totems as possible. The Shaman tree is mainly where you're getting damage and cast speed for yourself, and the Druid and the Beastmaster tree is going to be where you're going to get all of your defenses. So for the Thorn Totem, the best way I'd spec, especially for leveling, and we'll go over that, since there's a lot of different builds for how to do Thorn Totems, I'm going to go over the Rotten Core version of it, and then along with the Rotten Core version of it, why I use that for leveling and solo account found, since you don't really have access to any items, and when you're first going through as a character, you're just kind of hoping, hey, I hope I get something to drop that's going to help out, but this makes it so it doesn't really matter if anything drops, because Thorn Totem does a lot of damage. So we have our mana efficiency, and then the memories of Atera. These are the two most powerful things when you're first leveling. This is going to make it so that you get your mana back when you blow your totems up. And this is going to make it so that they cost a lot less mana. This is going to make it so that the build's actually possible when you're low level. You immediately go over into Rotten Core. And the reason why I do this is because Rotten Core allows you to blow your totems up and then do that extra damage. Against bosses, you're going to want Nightshade Briar, of course, because this is going to make it so that you actually do a lot more damage the more you blow up your totems. Up to 80%. But Rotten Core is the most important thing to start with. Once you get Rotten Core, you can kind of go wherever you want from there. If you decide that you want to not worry about crit so much at the beginning and just do these double projectiles and the shred armor, go ahead. But I like to go straight down, get the crit chance, because it's a lot of crit chance right off the beginning. And I usually get Titan's Bane, especially because at the beginning of the game, you're not really able to cast the totems as often as you'd hope. So this is going to give them increased cast speed really quick, and it helps a lot against the bosses. Later on, when you're higher level, you're not going to really need this, but it's pretty good for leveling. We'll go over the next abilities here. So Atera's Blessing. Atera's Blessing, definitely good for hardcore. If you look over here, we got Safeguard. You're going to get all your elemental and poison resist you need from here. This is going to increase the healing, of course. This is going to make a healing totem drop down, which is going to become important later on. This is going to cleanse you, which is just amazing. Cleansing the target, especially around the second or third act. You're going to start getting scorpions and all sorts of damage that goes poison and bleed. And getting a couple stacks and bleed of poison can kind of end your run pretty quickly. So having cleanse on just whenever you want, it's amazing. Now later on, I would immediately get mana efficiency and then later on go into the hot. Because at the beginning, the bosses don't really hit you so quickly and so fast that you're just going to get one shot out of nowhere. And this wouldn't help you anyway. So just do your normal heal and get the mana efficiency, and then eventually get the heal over time. And why you want this heal over time is because this gives you time to have heals going at all times on you without having to blast heal yourself, and give yourself time to run across the map in between boss abilities and cast other abilities while you're waiting for your heal to go off. Once you have Spriggan form, you're eventually going to want to spec into Rose Bloom. That's going to make it so that your Spriggan, whenever you cast Thorn Shield, you will use Atera's Blessing. So the whole point of the build is that when you're in Spriggan form, all of these other abilities are able to proc off. And we'll get to Spriggan form here. So Spriggan form, this is where my favorite part of the build. Once you actually activate this and you have this going, your character feels amazing. I'll even show you what it looks like real quick. So you'll be going through the campaign, kind of throwing a few totems down and using a few of your other Primalist abilities, probably a couple of auto attacks, maybe be summoning out a few pets. Now, once you actually get to Druid, not only are you getting all of these endurance and you're getting these stats to help you out, and you're getting the cast speed, you're going to get Spriggan, and you're going to get Spriggan form. So the main point of our Spriggan is we're really just summoning it out, and we're just trying to keep it alive. You can try out summoning vines or doing Tangling Roots, kind of whatever you want. But we're just keeping it alive, and we just want it to give us the Aura of Retribution. And this is 72% crit avoidance. It helps out a lot. You don't want to rely only on this for your crit avoidance, because, of course, when your pet dies in the middle of a boss fight, if you can't res it right away, you don't have your crit avoidance anymore. So be careful with that. But right off early in the campaign, I guarantee you, the Spriggan will probably never die. And on top of it never dying, it's going to heal you back to full all the time, and it's going to constantly give you this crit avoidance, which is insane. So it's enough crit avoidance that even at low level, you're going to have 100% crit avoidance, like right at the beginning of your leveling, around level 30. So it's around level 30 is when you're going to have your Spriggan form and your Spriggan. So, all right, so that's what we're doing for Spriggan. You're mainly just trying to get the crit avoidance and just keeping him alive with his health and then the armor. There's a bunch of other things you can do, like try to get reflect per vitality, things like that. But we're mainly just trying to keep him alive and get the crit avoidance. For your Spriggan, this is where the build actually comes online and becomes pretty powerful. So as you see, while you're walking around, you're just summoning the normal totems. Once you become a Spriggan, you have a constant Thorn Shield that blows up on all the creatures. see it? The AoE explosion. And then when you summon your totems, you summon a whole bunch of totems. And what this does is it's the same totem mana cost as your normal totems, but you're actually able to summon 3 at once. And what this does is make it so that you're able to get so much mana back that you're able to stay in Spriggan form with your Fury permanently, without any items that allow you to keep Spriggan form that people would usually use. So it's very good, very good. What you're going to do for Spriggan form is it's mainly a tank, for the way we're building it. Late game, if you decide you want to go into the Ice Branch and start shooting out things like the Spirit Thorns, go ahead. There's a way to do that. But just for your first leveling experience, especially since this is a guide on how to do a brand new solo account found hardcore, immediately just go down and get your armor. And you can make it so that every time you cast your Thorns, it's going to have increased duration, more armor, and you're going to make it so that it only casts on yourself instead of your allies, since you're in solo account found. This gives room for error of missing a heal on yourself. Go down to 0. These 2 points you don't really need. This is just a test where I kind of wanted to see what the other Spriggan was like. You can use these 2 points just to kind of round out your defenses if you want. And the most important part in this tree, and where I would spec first, is just go straight down to Unbound Garden. This makes it so you always summon 3 totems out. This is going to make the rage cost, the mana cost with your totems, amazing. It's going to make Rotten Core feel crazy powerful. And all of your totems, when you click Spike Totem here, all of your healing totems become Thorn Totems. So as soon as you get to this part of the build's going to feel very powerful. You're going to feel like you've kind of figured something out, and you're going to feel like, oh, okay, this is kind of what Last Epoch is about, is maxing out skills and then having skills work very coercively with other skills. And in this case, Thorn Totem with Spriggan, it works just amazing, especially if you're using the Rotten Core and you're blowing them up, because getting all your mana back really quickly and having the 100% rage uptime feels really nice in Spriggan form. So back to Terra's Blessing. By the time you have Spriggan form, you're going to get Rose Bloom. This is going to make it so that every time you cast your Thorns, you're going to also heal yourself back to full. It's ridiculously powerful. You're going to have unlimited healing, unlimited mana, and then your Spriggan's going to be giving you your crit avoidance. So right off the bat, around level 40, 45, you're going to be strong enough to take on monoliths because you have crit avoidance at 100%. You're able to heal yourself back to full. And the only thing holding you back is just going to kind of be your gear. Like, do you have enough hit points and stuff like that? Do you have enough resists with the totems and whatnot? Last thing you're going to spec into is whatever you want. So around level 50, you don't necessarily need to do Storm Totem right off the bat. Storm Totem is going to be really difficult to use. You're going to be in Spriggan form most of the time. And Storm Totem is not going to be the most powerful thing to spec into at the beginning. You can kind of try out all sorts of different things. Just know that a lot of these different moves don't work with Spriggan form. So until you get the ability to go out of this, you can even go into Maelstrom and kind of have it so that while you're casting your Spirit Thorns, you're getting the Maelstrom stacks. But that's kind of up to you. So just the last ability will be up to you. If you want to do the Storm Totem, and when you walk into boss fights, just kind of throw it down before you throw down your other totems. You can do that. That's not a problem. But that's going to be all the skills. And for the Storm Totem, you're just doing maximum damage. I like to spec into this Blizzard because it makes a Blizzard go around the totem. It makes it so it's a little bit more visible and I can see where it's at. And it also slows everything down real quick. So I just think it's kind of cool. But for the most part, you're just doing as much damage as possible. So if you see, I go down to intensity. We're not summoning it very often, so the mana cost is fine. And then I just go straight over here. I get the slow. And we're just getting the move speed whenever the Storm Totem shocks an enemy. And then more damage. At the beginning, I'd kind of go more into the move speed because you're not going to be able to do enough damage with this or summon it often enough for it to be that useful. But once the build's finished, this will be out all the time and it'll feel really good. So that's it for the skills. Now let's go over how everything kind of works together with itself. So if you look at the Stormcarved Testament here, this is what summons your Storm Totem out. Right there. 12% chance to summon a Storm Totem on hit with an 8-second cooldown. And this will be up 100% of the time. So your Storm Totem, as long as you want it up, it will be up 100% of the time while you're doing this build, even with that 12% chance. As for the gear I'm wearing, there's always room for improvement. But we'll go over the gear I'm wearing and then some of the gear in my inventory here, some stuff that you can try out. All right, so that's the skills. And then how they all coerce together is you're using your druid form here, and this is a higher level. So once you get to a high enough level that you can use Stormcarved Testament, you're just going to switch and stay in your form the whole time. Never switch out. Summon your totems. Blow them up. This is why we scale cast speed with this build instead of having the totems do cast speed. And then every time you blow your totems up, you'll see they actually stack and shoot out spines. Just makes it so that your cast speed becomes their cast speed. And you're going to walk over to bosses and just kind of walk around them. Blowing your totems up, stacking up the poison so you can do more damage. You can throw some vines down. The vines will be attacking. And then whenever you want the Storm Totem out, when you have Stormcarved Testament, you're just going to auto attack real quick. And it comes out. And when it all comes together, you start doing a pretty tremendous amount of damage for a single target. Start doing a pretty tremendous amount of damage for going through the map. I like the explosion totems because it feels like it's a little bit easier to kill groups of enemies with. And I don't have to worry about keeping the totems alive, their HP, or anything like that. We're really just bringing them out, just exploding them real quick. And we'll do a demonstration on one of the maps here in a moment on that. That's how the build's pretty much going to work. What makes it really good is you're always healing. So since you're scaling cast speed, kind of try to use that to your advantage. So you're always going to kind of walk up, throw a few totems out. You're going to be popping your heals off on yourself. Stack, as you see, kind of constantly stacks your armor. And you're throwing your totems out. And then your explosions from your thorns will actually summon the lightning totem out. So you don't even need to auto attack. But if you ever need to just on demand get it, you can just do that. And as you see, you're kind of in permanent form. So things that make the build kind of pop. Let's go over some gearing. It's kind of nice to know what to gear because you'll be leveling not knowing what to do. So at late game, you're going to get something like Jeweler's Obsession. But for hardcore, it's kind of tough to get to level 70 plus items. And by the time you're there, the build should be done, right? Or at least you're getting there. So things to look out for while you're leveling. For idols, you're going to kind of just be looking for your HP idols. If you can, try to get the totems here that have like the really high HP. As you see, we've got totem health on one of them. Elemental resist while you're transformed. Anything while you're transformed is going to work since you're in transformed all the time. For small idols, try to have your small idols be something that's meaningful. Armor, health, stun avoidance health. Finish out your resist with it if you need. And then the only savagery or ornate idols I really thought were really interesting was the crit chance ones. They make it so that your 100% crit chance goes really quick. And then also, if you can, try to get a totem that makes it so that, or an idol that makes it so that when you summon a totem out, you have a chance to get haste. And what this does is make it so that in the passive tree, when you're going through the ancestral speed, you only need a little bit of ancestral speed, and then one of those idols, and you're going to have permanent haste uptime. Now, gear I'm wearing and gear that you're going to want like end game is going to be a little bit different. But I'm just kind of wearing this to get the rest of my resist up and the extra health. For uniques, you can use, I'll show you a good one. Okay. But yeah, there's going to be idols for totem damage, all sorts of things. For gloves, Drill Rose is probably going to be the best, but try when you get Drill Rose to get something that's very meaningful that you can't get on your totems usually. I think something like Shred Armor. Shred Armor is going to be one of the best. I've seen other people do that with totem builds. It's definitely a very good idea. You can't get shred armor on your totems any other way. So might as well try to get something on Drooler's Obsession that your totems usually couldn't get. Doesn't have to be shred armor, but just something special. So for your gearing, helmet. I went with minion spell damage. We went with this helmet because we want the max endurance and the maximum health gain as endurance. It's the base. It's the big thing here. Summon Thorn Totem, and then if you can get like increased health and whatnot, really good. Attunement helps out. Titan Heart. If you can get Titan Heart with spell damage for totems on it, very powerful, very good. And the reason why we're using Titan Heart is because I found that a two-hander for this build works the best. There's a lot more shaman options for a two-hander, and this is the best I've been able to craft so far. So as for prefixes, there's not a lot of prefixes that help totems. So cast speed is one of the only ones we're going to really get. So cast speed is going to be perfect. The second prefix, as long as you can get anything that helps you or the totems, is great. And then for your suffixes, try to get minion spell damage, and then minion spell damage again if you can. And then minion physical penetration here. All of these help the totems. Very powerful. And if you can get it on the +1 minion skill base, that's going to help multiple skills you have, including the Spriggan, including both of your totems. So really good. As for rings, if you want, you can try to get yourself something like a Silver Frond. I have not got one with legendary potential, so we're not using it. The Silver Frond is going to actually allow you to teleport around. So in the meantime, if you see here, Attunement Ring, minion health, health and necrotic resistance. So if you see here, Silver Frond, I'm going to have replaced this, but we're getting our necrotic resistance and some attunement from this. Helps out pretty well. Over here, same thing, attunement, minion damage, health. For boots, any boots will work. We're using these because we actually needed the necrotic resistance, and the health and the vines help out. Also, the move speed on these is tremendous. For gloves, once I did say, Drooler's Obsession is going to be the best. But in the meantime, before you get those, because that's going to be tier 3 Drooler, before you can even get those to drop, go ahead and try to get the just a pair of gloves with some cast speed and attunement on them. And then once you hit level 78, you must get the Stormcarved Testament. It's very powerful. It's going to make it so you can summon your Storm Totem out. And in the meantime, just go for any totem that's going to have like attunement, things for minion damage, or hit points and whatnot. That's for the gearing. A few options that you have here. If you want to use a shield, go ahead and try to get Farabor's Chisel. If you decide to go to Frost Totems, you can go for something like Eyes of Formosus and try to use the Apogee of Frozen Light. Once again, using Farabor's Chisel, something like a shield like this would help out a lot. You're getting your minion health, block chance health, necrotic resistance, and poison resistance all on the shield. So that'll help since it's hard to get poison and necrotic. Other helms you can get, things like totem damage, summon Thorn Totem. For your chest, if you don't have a Titan Heart yet, something like this will work just fine. Spell damage for totems, minion critical strike multiplier, big damage for you. And then if you get a Legacy of the Quiet Forest, if you can make a really good one, it'd be really nice because that 19 rage gained while in Spriggan form pretty much makes you Spriggan permanently. And the poison and void resistance is very hard to get on belts, especially in that kind of quantity. If you do decide to go Silver Frond when you're on bosses, and I do use it on bosses sometimes, I usually walk in, summon a Thorn Totem and both of these down, turn it into Spriggan form, bring out the rest of my totems, and then I'll just start launching on them. And every time you need to teleport, you just cast your Summon Vines, and that'll let your guy teleport with that Silver Frond. Reason why we go this build as one of our first ones is we don't have to worry about anything like ward, trying to stack anything weird and anything strange. The build requires you to use attunement, so might as well try to do attunement, and then you can just go into hit points as much as possible. So when I'm usually running around without the silver frond and everything, my character will usually have something going on like this. And we'll have about 956 or even more. Like if I go over here and use this belt with more endurance threshold, we do lose a little bit of HP, but our endurance threshold goes up to 1,000. And what this interaction does is make it so that when you're going through the game, you're extremely tanky. And that's the reason why I pick this build usually as one of my first hardcore characters, because you have the ability to constantly get all your mana back. You get the ability of all of the idols, because you can do the transformation. You can use the transformation idols, get elemental resistance from those, whatever you want. And while you're in this form, you're constantly healing yourself back to full. You're constantly doing damage. And not to mention, these totems are healing totems, so they heal you while you're just standing next to them. So you're constantly healing back to full. So healing's done. You don't have to worry about healing. You're going shaman. So shaman's already giving you most of your elemental resistances. And then you're getting the rest of them from just summoning your totems out. So if you look, when I summon totems out here, my resistances go through the roof. And if I decide to throw a heal on myself, I can get all the rest of my poison resistance stuff that I want. So it does require a little bit of micromanaging. But while you're fighting bosses, if you just kind of sit there and keep a heal on yourself, and keep your totems out, you're going to have maximum resistances all the time. So it makes it very nice. You don't need any gear for that. You're going to most of your builds taking care of most of your resistances. The Spriggan, once again, as I said, takes care of your critical strike avoidance. So a very powerful build to start off with when you don't have any gear or any way of getting gear right at the beginning, because you're doing solo count bound. Now, endurance is extremely powerful. If you're doing HP builds, you definitely want to go into endurance. And what this does is when you have something like, see that 29% endurance here? I have that. And then we also spec into extra endurance from the Druid tree. And this allows us to get 60% damage reduction as long as we're at our endurance threshold. So 60% and then add 1,000 hit points. So whenever I'm at 1,000 hit points, we have a 60% damage reduction. This is giving us another 15% damage reduction while we have the two-hander. And then we're constantly getting different procs of damage reduction from our trees. So, including the fact that we have Berserking going at all times when we're at our threshold, meaning that we're getting another 20% damage reduction. So you're pretty much at 99% damage reduction the whole time, or whatever the max is. I haven't looked at if there's a maximum threshold for damage reduction, but having all these, I've done things like live through Drill Rose Explosion, and I'll show you guys that right here. Ooh. Ooh. I believe I survived that. I was supposed to die that. He did not. I did not hit D in time. And hopefully that helps you guys out. So one of my favorite builds, I'll show you guys a little demonstration here on a map. Just kind of going through the map casually. And like I said, very nice with the defenses. We're getting almost max armor. We're getting max resistances. You're healing back to full at all times. And one of the big things that you don't think about until you're actually playing for a bit, especially if you play a melee character or other minion characters, is that being able to constantly summon these out in front of you means that if you're in a really scary situation, or if you, like, let's say you really don't want to die, like you're in a turn trying to outlevel your friends or something like that, you can kind of sit off to the side, and if there's creatures coming at you, just kind of sit there and constantly blow your totems up. And while you're doing that, they're constantly going to keep on aggroing on your totems. You're not going to really have to even worry about healing yourself. But if they do get to you, you're a massive tank, and you can heal yourself back to full health. Well, hopefully that helps you guys with this. Just wanted to show off what you could do. We're about to hit level 100. Hopefully we don't die in the meantime. And then we'll show off what kind of max corruption and everything we're doing there.